Good morning. So we have a few bills to go over today. We have a full house of SROs with the exception of Jillian. And so I thought the easiest way to do it would be to run through some bills that we haven't talked about before. And so you can get a little bit more of a description and we can talk about whether or not we should change our position on those bills. And we'll start with House File 299 with Jen Harbison.
Good morning. Okay, sorry. Good morning, everybody. Jen Harbison. I'm talking about House File 299, which is immunization exemptions. This is a bill that we're registered undecided on. And the provisions of this bill would require that information on exemptions be included within any recommendation of immunizations by the Department of Health and Human Services, would also be required of daycare facilities and centers. Also, the Board of Education would be adopting this policy. And then would also apply to higher education, including community colleges and our universities. And so we would be following the law if this gets implemented. It was approved by the House, I believe earlier this week on a vote of 58-30. And the costs for publishing and providing the notice would be left to the individual education entity or the department to cover those costs. And so if the committee would like to discuss the position, again, at this time, we are undecided.
I would just ask a question on the bills that we're going to be discussing. If there are any unusual entities or groups that are registered in support or in opposition as you're discussing the bills, that might be helpful.
Okay. Let me just pull that up here.
You don't really need to go through all of them, but you know, if there's just anything that really sticks out.
I would just say there's been a lot of debate about immunizations over the past several sessions. And so the groups have kind of aligned themselves on the bill in the manner in which they've presented over the last few years. So the medical community is mostly undecided on the bill. And then there are a few groups that have registered against, and those are groups that generally advocate for children's health care. And then there are groups that are for, including groups like Inspired Life, Valor, Iowa, the Family Leader. And so I would say this looks like similar bills on immunizations in terms of the registration.
Okay, thank you.
So undecided is where we're at. I gather from the lack of questions that undecided is where we should stay on this bill.
I would agree.
Okay. Next is House File 301. Jen?
Okay, House File 301 actually was added in debate in the House this week. It relates to our residency programs at University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. And since provisions of the bill were added to House File 516, I'm going to let Keith talk about that as he is covering that bill.
House File 386.
My 386.
3-year medical degree.
Sorry.
3-year medical.
The 3-year medical bill has also been approved. This is going to be a study with University of Iowa Healthcare and Des Moines University that will be due to the General Assembly to look at the option of 3-year medical schools. And so we will participate in the study, collaborate with DMU, and provide the report and make sure the board is also provided the report. And we're just monitoring this bill.
Right, we're undecided on this bill. I don't see a reason to change unless the committee does.
I'm comfortable.
Okay. House File 516, Keith.
Good morning. This bill has sort of become an omnibus bill related to medical education at the University of Iowa. It's a combination of three separate bills the House had been considering. The House passed this yesterday. So it's now in committee in the Senate. It does a couple of things. The first provision requires the board to adopt a policy requiring 80% of the classes in the College of Medicine and the College of Dentistry be Iowan. The language has changed a little bit from committee to the floor, but again, it requires the board to adopt a policy related to residency of students in our College of Dentistry and Medicine. Also requires the University of Iowa to provide a report on where our graduates and where our residents are locating in the year following ending their training at the university. So a way to track where our trainees are ending up. This codifies session law that was passed a few sessions ago relating to a preference in our residency and fellowship programs for Iowa residents. This again just codifies session law that was already there. Also, another provision requires requires the university to interview any Iowan who has graduated from a medical program in the state for residencies in OB/GYN, psychiatry, general surgery, emergency medicine, neurology, primary care, and cardiology fellowships. And we have not taken a position on this. We're monitoring at this point.
Keith, question for you. The 80% residency, how does that compare to historical numbers?
The College of Medicine has traditionally been around 70%. The wrinkle that I don't have data on right at hand is the original version of this bill broadened the definition of Iowan to mean any student who had done their undergraduate work in the state, or any Iowan who did their undergraduate work out of state and is coming back to the state. I think with those two added provisions, I think the College of Medicine would be very close to the 80% goal. College of Dentistry, I think, might struggle a little bit more, but their class is only 82 students. So, you know, changing one or two students has a bigger effect on the percentage there.
Sure.
But I think the College of Dentistry would have to stretch more to reach this goal.
They're around 70% now.
Yes.
Okay. And we're registered as undecided on this, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
This passed the House yesterday, or day before yesterday.
House File 706, open meetings.
House File 706 is an update to the open meetings, open records law. It enhances the penalties for violations of board members for knowing violations of the open meetings law. And it also requires training of new board members all across state government. Once they become part of a board, they have to take the training provided by IPIB within, I think, 19 days of assuming office. We're simply monitoring this like every other state entity. I think the only organization that has registered for it is the Iowa Freedom of Information Council.
Keith, are those
Go ahead.
violations held to the person that violates it, or the board, the entity, or
The culpability remains the same. They just have increased the fines. So you are still personally liable if you violate the chapter, unless you voted against going into closed session or relied on the written advice of an attorney.
And then Keith, the training that all new board members are required to take, I take it that that's an online course that they can do within 19 days?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure. That the training is envisioned to be offered by IPIB.
and is it correct that doesn't exist right now?
I don't believe so.
Did it in years past, do you know? Because I attended something years ago when I was first on.
Board member orientation for all in the state.
I think what that was, it was a new board member
Just an
orientation.
orientation. Okay,
I think that was probably a module within that.
okay, thank you.
This bill has rose out of dissatisfaction with the way the Davenport City Council operated after the
Yep.
building.
Yep. Yep. I would think they'd have to do the training online because it would be difficult to offer training within 19 days of being appointed for all the various board members.
I'm just curious, Keith, does that include like school boards too?
Yes.
Okay.
And you said all the other public entities are.
Everyone's monitoring except the Freedom of Information Council.
Okay.
So we'll leave that undecided. Next is House File 891, banning minors at obscene shows.
So this bill has gotten quite a bit of attention and has changed substantially from the first version that was introduced. Now it simply talks about obscene material being presented at a live show and minors being present. We're monitoring this at present as are most other entities. The family leader is for the legislation. The venue operators are against, and everyone else is sort of on the sidelines watching.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
All right, we'll stay undecided.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Next is Senate File 288, university pregnancy accommodations. Jillian.
Yeah, this bill requires our higher education institutions and community colleges to make reasonable accommodations for students who are pregnant or who recently gave birth. So that includes allowing them to take a leave of absence, allowing them time to make up exams, and making sure that any absences due to their pregnancy are considered excused absences. And we're registered undecided on this at this point.
How are the other registrations on this? Because this one seems like it would be something that we would want to support.
For the people who are registered in favor, there's the Catholic Conference, the Family Leader, Planned Parenthood. We're undecided on it at this point. It does allow students to file complaints with the Iowa Office of Civil Rights if they believe our institutions are in violation of this law.
Which, can they do that already?
It doesn't go to the Civil Rights Office right now. I think right now it is handled within the institution. And generally Title IX offices handle this.
Do the institutions,
Or student services.
do the institutions already have what they would do in case of pregnancy and family medical leave, that type of thing? Do they already have policies in place?
A lot of it is in federal law, yes, already.
Okay.
Why would we not register in support of it? What would be the reasons?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I think the reasons we wouldn't register in favor, for a large part, we're already doing this. It mirrors federal law. And so it's just kind of repetitive, it's duplicative. And the Civil Rights Office also isn't involved in our current processes. So that would be a new addition.
I'd be curious as to thoughts from other regions.
I don't know if there's anybody, I personally would just stay undecided. And that's why I asked that question. We already have things in place for this. So I don't know the necessity of this, but I am certainly willing to wait and be undecided and for further argument or further reasons.
I agree with Sherry that if it's duplicative, and we feel like we have policies in place at the universities to support these students, then I'm okay with that then.
Okay. Okay.
All right, we'll stay undecided. And the last bill for us to talk about today is Senate File 297, state contract language with Carol Ann.
Good morning. I have the most exciting bill, Senate File 297. It basically puts into statute what state government, state entities can put in their contracts for purchasing. We are registered undecided. We are in fact the only state agency or state entity registered on this bill. We have concerns about in Senate File 297, the venue for litigation requires us to come to Polk County. We have asked the Department of Administrative Services to amend it to allow us to have the venue of whichever institution is in the middle of litigation, so we can do Blackhawk, Story, and Johnson County. They have agreed, but yet have not seen that amendment on the Senate file. The House has a comparable bill, House File 952, that has expanded upon this. Besides, it has the venue change, but it also has a provision dealing with reservations of grounds around the Capitol. So an amendment was adopted in the State Government Committee in the House on the study bill to include rules about how many times the grounds can be rented by certain groups, by a group. And to me, that's kind of the epitome why we stay undecided on some of these things, because it is always fascinating to watch what things get grouped together in certain bills.
No question about that.
Then we will stay undecided on that one as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have run through the list of bills that I thought the committee should talk about today, so I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or give everybody time back in their calendar.
I would just ask for what we see coming up this next week. Are there bills that we've been involved in that we know will be debated? Maybe we could talk about that a little bit.
The tuition bill, House File 440, the Center for Intellectual Freedom, House File 437, we understand both of those bills will be debated on the House floor next week.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anything else then, Mark?
That's all I have.
I appreciate everybody's time. Very informative.
Very,
Thank you.
very helpful.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
right. All right, thank you.